Welcome back to our humble little Minecraft base. In episode 1, I transformed this stronghold into a lovely starter base. Then I built this cherry tree as my front door, and these end pillars which are actually a disguised creeper farm. In the last episode, I renovated several more rooms in the stronghold, each packed with redstone machines, including a double mob spawner, a moss farm, and a chicken farm. In today's episode, I want to clear 3 big goals. First, I want to build an automatic villager crop farm that can mass produce carrots and potatoes. Then, I want to build the massive jack-o'-lantern from the thumbnail around the farm as decoration. And finally, I want to build a spooky lighthouse to act as both a storage room for the crops and a villager trading hall to turn them into emeralds. If you're here just to see some building, you can skip to this time in the video. That's when the jack-o'-lantern part gets started. If you want to see the villager crop farm get built and hear a bit about the future plans I have for this world, stick around. The site of our build today is this small plains biome. This island is really close to the stronghold build, so I have some pretty big plans for it. I want to completely terraform the island with all new terrain based on Minecraft's Soul Sand Valley biome. That's why I picked the spooky themed builds that we're going to be building today. This project is only one of several custom biomes that I plan on building in this world. Anyway, enough future talk, let's get started on the crop farm. The first thing I need is a solid stock of villagers. Luckily, I've already captured a couple zombie villagers on this island. I've been using one of them to supply all of the mending books that I put on my tools. I dug out a little hole in the ground to make a safe place for the villagers to breed. I'm going to need to separate them into 2 groups and keep those groups from interacting. One of them will be given carrots, and one of them will be given potatoes. This is important since the villagers are being used for crop farming. If any of the potato villagers get contaminated with carrots or vice versa, it'll mess up the proportions of the farm's output. That's why it's essential to use zombie villagers to start with, since they've never been exposed to crops. After a pretty annoying process, I finally got 2 villagers in each cell. Now, onto the farm itself. There are going to be 4 layers to this farm, and each layer will have 4 separate plots of farmland. I decided to use some cheap and boring materials since none of this will be visible once the jack-o'-lantern gets built. Just a quick disclaimer, I decided to build this farm without the help of a tutorial, so it's far from optimized. If you're looking to build one for yourself, there are probably lots of better designs out there to pull inspiration from. I wanted to puzzle through it myself in hopes of learning something new along the way. Here's a basic explanation of how the farm works. There will be a farming villager in each section of farmland. Those farmers will tend to the crops, and every once in a while, they will decide to share their crops with one of the other villagers. Here's the catch. The only other villager they have access to will be in the very center of the 4 plots. That villager will be surrounded by hopper minecarts, which are able to pick up crops far faster than a villager can. Those items will then be sent to a storage room where I have access to them. It's a pretty simple build, but moving the villagers around is what makes it difficult. Between getting the villagers in the minecarts, working around iron golems, and keeping everyone safe from zombies, it's quite a task, but very doable with patience. Okay, that's the first layer done. While I speed through the next 3, I want to talk to you about my future plans for villager trading. In the strip of ocean between the plains biome and the cherry tree that marks the stronghold base, I want to build a series of ships. So far, I've come up with the designs for 3. 2 of them are regular boats, and one of them is hanging from a blimp. Each ship will be themed after a type of villager, and inside, there will be a trading hall full of those villagers. Villager trading is something I barely touched on in my last world, which is a real shame because it's very beneficial. I want to get a good system set up early on, that way it's there to provide me with resources far into the future. I'm really eager to get started on the project. I almost chose it as the topic of today's episode. But it would be a little premature to build a bunch of villager trading halls without having a steady source of emeralds first, so that's why we're working on the crop farm instead. To be honest, building boats and blimps is a project that's really far outside my comfort zone, but so far, the prototypes look pretty good. I'm going to keep working on them in the background, and hopefully, I'll be able to show them off in this world soon. And just like that, we've got a fully functional villager crop farm. Alright, it's time to collect the resources we'll need to build the massive jack-o'-lantern, starting with orange terracotta. I flew to the nearest Badlands and set up a haste 2 beacon. In this world, I have a really cool data pack called Universal Dyeing. Basically, it allows any color of terracotta to be dyed into any other color. So red terracotta can be dyed orange in the same way normal terracotta can. It's super helpful, and I highly recommend downloading it for your world. I got it from vanillatweaks.com, which is a project led by Zazumavoid. While I was in the area, I picked up some red sand as well. I'll need some smooth red sandstone to use for the highlights. Luckily, I only need a couple stacks, so this hardly took any time at all. Next, I'm going to need black concrete and black wool for the carved parts of the pumpkin. I don't have an ink farm yet, so for now, I've got to hunt squid manually. My looting 3 sword did speed up this process quite a bit. Up next is the block I need the most of, acacia wood. These logs are going to make up the bulk of the pumpkin, so I need tons of them. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a large savanna anywhere nearby, which is a shame because I usually prefer deforestation rather than constantly bone mealing new saplings. Regardless, I was able to get all that I needed. On to the weirdest one, pumpkins. Since the build is a giant jack-o'-lantern, I thought it'd be neat to include pumpkins in the block palette. I ended up finding a really good place for them in the build, but it did take a while to get as many as I needed. If you skipped to this part of the video, welcome back. For the rest of us, it's time for the main event of this episode. I went ahead and built the mouth, eyes, and nose. The depth difference does look a little weird right now, but by the end, it won't look as out of place. Up next, I want to build the indents of the pumpkin, basically the lines or creases that are formed by the slices that jut out. This step is why I needed to harvest so many pumpkins earlier. Now all I have to do is fill in the gaps between the lines of pumpkins. To help the curves look more natural, I used a variety of orange blocks for shading. Orange terracotta is the darkest shade, so it goes towards the outside. Stripped acacia wood makes up the bulk of the build. Unfortunately, since so much of the log is exposed, I was forced to use the 6-sided bark version. So for every 3 building blocks, I needed to mine 4 logs. Luckily, the log texture is made up of vertical lines, which help the pumpkin look more realistic. For a little extra variety, I used smooth red sandstone in the very center of each slice as the highlights. With all the gaps filled in, all that's left is to finish the top, which includes adding a curly stem made out of spruce wood. And there it is, our beautiful jack-o'-lantern. He looks a little out of place on his own, so I decided to add 2 candle holders on either side. I made the dish out of dark oak, and the candles using a combo of bone blocks and quartz pillar. To imply movement and add a little extra spookiness, I added lime green glass trailing behind them. I was very happy to find out that in the time it took me to build this jack-o'-lantern, the crop farm produced over 7 shulker boxes worth of items. I was so excited by these rates that I decided to add 2 more layers to the farm afterward. Alright, I think I can call this part of the build officially finished. I want to leave the extra room inside the pumpkin empty, just in case I decide to add even more layers to the crop farm in the future. So, the storage room and villager trading hall will need to go elsewhere. I thought this little peninsula right next to the pumpkin was the perfect place to put another structure, so I started prepping the area. I decided a lighthouse would be fitting since it's right next to an ocean, but the normal red and white design didn't quite fit the theme I was going for. I typed spooky lighthouse into Google and eventually came across this image, which seemed like the perfect fit. To be totally honest, I usually don't build actual buildings in Minecraft. In fact, I don't think I've built a single one since I started sharing my builds online. However, this one just seemed fitting for the area, especially since the plains biome will eventually be covered in soul soil and custom terrain. The build process for this one went pretty quick. It's made out of stone and deep slate, so I didn't have to go out of my way to collect any new items. Although it's not very clear that this is meant to be a lighthouse, but that doesn't bother me too much. And there we go, a finished spooky lighthouse. All that's left is to set up the storage room for the crops, and build a small trading hall full of farmer villagers. I'm gonna keep the interior design simple and pragmatic. I set up some item filters to sort the crops for me, but connecting these filters to the crop farm is a bit of a longer task. I dug a tunnel going from the jack-o'-lantern to the lighthouse, then I went back through and replaced the floor with packed ice. This will make the items move very quickly and minimize any lag that might be caused. After adding in some slabs and water streams, this thing was ready to take on items. I went inside the jack-o'-lantern and set up a small circuit that will detect when items are inside the dropper, and when they are, they will automatically be dispensed. After that, I revisited the villager pit from earlier, and slowly but surely moved 12 of them up some stairs and into the upper levels of the lighthouse. I ended up making 4 floors with 3 villagers on each floor, and that seems like plenty of farmers to do what I need to do. Okay, I think that's everything I wanted to do in this video. Thanks so much for watching this far, and I hope you're enjoying watching this world develop. I mentioned earlier that I intend on building several custom biomes in this world. I can't make any promises, but I think next episode is when I'm going to tackle transforming the mushroom biome that's right next to my base. Thanks for watching, I hope you'll stick around for the next project.